CNN Partner Hotels. Connected to your world.
We try to be global and we try to be smart. And we try very hard to get both of those every week. What I want to hear are authentic voices of people who are passionate or intelligent about a subject, who will make you smarter, move you emotionally, who will kind of challenge your mind or move your heart. And that's the consistency that we try to get at.
Fareed Zakaria, GPS, Sundays on CNN.
I'm Sam Kiley in Ukraine, and this is CNN.
The news continues. Let's turn things over to Don and Don Lemon tonight. Don?
Anderson, thank you very much. This is Don Lemon tonight, and exclusive, the first look at footage from the documentary on the January 6th committee that it is examining right now. The January 6th committee, I should say, is examining footage from that documentary right now. This is a trailer for Unprecedented. It's a three-part series by filmmaker Alex Holder, including never-before-seen footage of Donald Trump and his family during the final weeks of the election and after. Intimate interviews and their reactions to his election loss. Take a look at this.
Okay.
My father, he's very honest, and he is who he is.
He believes everything that he's doing is right.
I think I treat people well unless they don't treat me well, in which case you go to war.
Can we talk for a minute about January 6th?
Yeah.
So again, that is exclusive footage, and I need to tell you that we're going to talk with the filmmaker Alex Holder tomorrow night at 10, so make sure you tune in. The documentary series will be released by Discovery Plus, which is also owned by CNN's parent company. Now, the chairman of the committee, Benny Thompson, says that he has reviewed some of the footage from the documentary and called it, quote, important. It's part of what the committee says is a deluge of new evidence, including information from the National Archives and tips to the committee's hotline. So much that they have had to postpone next week's hearings to dig through all of this. But tomorrow, we're going to hear from three Justice Department officials testifying how the then president of the United States tried to weaponize the DOJ to spread his election lies. But what we've already heard is really still shocking. Even after everything that we have heard and seen, it's still shocking. And it goes against everything America is supposed to stand for. The President of the United States, sworn to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, right? Trampling all over that Constitution, using and abusing every lever of power to try to hold on to the White House, attacking people in power, attacking the powerless. And the threat is still very, very real. Members of the January 6th committee taking extra security precautions in the wake of calls for violence. A post on the former president's own social media platform, including a picture of a noose, and it reads, I quote, "The J6 committee are guilty of treason." It should be is guilty, but they said are guilty of treason. Perpetuation of an insurrection. Hang them all. Another references Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi with a gif of the guillotine and the message MGGA. Hashtag MGGA. I guess they went MAGA. I don't know. It was supposed to be MAGA. And hashtag make guillotines great again. Now, CNN asked Truth Social about those posts and got no response, but they appear to have been removed for now. Let's talk about all of this. We got a lot to talk about. Liz Farah is here. Liz Farah Griffin, CNN political commentator and the former Trump White House Director of Strategic Communications. Ellie Honig is here as well, CNN senior legal analyst. And Nia Malika Henderson, CNN senior political analyst. We're glad to have one and all. Good evening. So, Ellie, let's start with you. According to reports, this doc covers the final 6 weeks of Trump's presidency, including and up to January 6th, that insurrection. What will the committee want to know from him?
Well, first of all, if I'm on the committee, I want to see the documentary, but I also want to see all the raw footage. I can imagine if this is a few-hour documentary, there's going to be 5-10 times as much raw footage. All of that is admissible evidence if we're talking about a court proceeding, and it could be invaluable. I mean, nothing is better than videotape from an investigative standpoint. Witnesses, you can always say they're not credible, they have an agenda. Videotape is videotape, and if this is in sort of unvarnished, heat-of-the-moment comments, then that could be really valuable.
Well, and also just to show mindset, I don't know listen, when there's a microphone and a camera in front of you, most people are usually, they keep it close to the vest, right? They're careful about what they say, but you never know with this family. I mean, Nia, this filmmaker, Alex Holder, had access leading up to the election inside the White House at Mar-a-Lago, the campaign trail, he speaks to Donald Trump and his kids, and according to press reports, he speaks to Vice President Mike Pence, Jared Kushner as well. The committee is speaking to him tomorrow morning before the televised hearing, and then they are taking a break. What do we want to know about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, he has hours and hours and hours of footage, and a lot of this information, the fact that he got such access to Trump and his inner circle, Trump's family, this comes as a surprise to a lot of folks in the Trump campaign, and it certainly comes as a surprise to folks in the committee. This is why they'll sit down with the filmmaker tomorrow, depose him, get as much information as possible, and then sift through. They are trying to put together an easily digestible puzzle piece and portrait of what happened in the lead up to January 6th, on January 6th. And this filmmaker has all sorts of access to the principal people involved, people like Donald Trump, people who were there in the run up to January 6th and on January 6th as well. So this is going to be invaluable information that they're going to get from this filmmaker. It'll start tomorrow in terms of them deposing him. And then we'll see how they fit that into upcoming hearings, which we'll see a bit of, some hearings tomorrow, but then we'll see how this fits into later hearings into July.
Alyssa, to you now. You've been inside this White House. You know all of the players involved, right? You've had personal relationships with them. This is interesting because we hear so much about Jared and Ivanka. Supposedly they were standing in between, trying to hold up the democracy. And then they said, I told my dad that, he shouldn't go along. But we know that Ivanka told Holder, December 2020, that her father should continue fighting until every legal remedy was exhausted. I'm not sure what the real story is, which one she told him not to or to do it, whatever. But when she spoke to the committee, she said that, Bill Barr said there was no evidence and that's where she was going with this. I want you to watch this and then I'll get the answer to your question.
I respect Attorney General Barr. So I accepted what he was saying.
So conflicting stories.
Well, one point I want to make is this documentary surprised a lot of people who worked in the former White House, myself included. So I was the White House communications director until December 4th when I resigned. I had no knowledge that this was being filmed, and traditionally any of this would have gone through my office for approval. My understanding, as I've caught up to speed on it, is that it actually came from Jared Kushner, who thought that this was a good idea and encouraged members of the family and the former president to participate in it.
Knew nothing about it.
Knew nothing about it. Wow. I think this was something that was probably very close hold. A select group knew about it. And, the point you made that this is the unvarnished footage in what's behind the scenes, the kind of B-roll, the outtakes, that's going to be incredibly valuable. And I do think it helps kind of capture mindset. The clip that was played, where the former president saying, if you disagree with someone, it's war. That kind of helps paint a picture of where the man was in those final months leading up to the insurrection.
But we don't know. Listen, I think people think every time there's something new, this is going to be the smoking gun. We don't know that because we don't know everything that's in there, correct?
Very much so. Right. And I want to be incredibly clear. I think the work the committee is doing is very important. I've sat down with the committee. I want to help in any way I can. But I think people kind of need to pump the brakes and let the work be done, let the investigation take place.
And let's see what's in the documentary before we decide that this is the one thing. So you were nodding in agreement.
I think that's right. It's been sort of the story of Trump's, presidency. This is the one thing that is going to bring him down. This is the one thing that is going to change his followers' minds about him. And so far, we haven't necessarily seen that from this committee, even though it has been incredibly damning, even though we know that Trump is watching and certainly hasn't liked what he has seen, particularly testimony from Bill Barr, testimony from his own daughter, agreeing with Bill Barr. So they have done, I think, a much more thorough and better job than people, I think, thought they would going into this. There were all this talk about, this would be partisan, but how is it partisan if it's Trump's own people essentially saying that he was the leader of this plot to overturn an election?
Yeah, it's been all of Trump's. Before, let me real quick. So which was it? did she believe that her dad should fight, or did she not believe that her dad should fight? Is it the Bill Barr thing, or is it what I don't know.
I think the Bill Barr thing was probably blown a bit out of proportion. If you listen to her actual words, she's really dancing around saying that he lost. She clearly does not want to get on the wrong side of her father on this. I mean, she was there on January 6th on the ellipse, behind the scenes, and it's been reported that she was in the West Wing that day. So I think she was probably more of the mind to stay and fight.
Okay.
Let me just say from experience, if this is a daughter telling her father something that she thinks the father wants to hear and then telling somebody else something else, wouldn't be the first time in history that happens.
Let's talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow is another very important day, tomorrow afternoon. So give us a preview of what we might hear tomorrow from this testimony, from these former DOJ witnesses.
Well, this one hits home for me as a DOJ alum. This is about the attempt to infiltrate and take over the Justice Department and use it to legitimize the election fraud lie. And one thing that we've seen, what this administration, the Trump administration, was desperately in search of was validation. Somebody to give some credence to their theories, as Rudy Giuliani put it, no facts, only theories about election fraud. And they failed at every turn, largely because Republican-appointed career professionals, like people we hear from tomorrow, Jeffrey Rosen, Richard Donahue, said absolutely not. We're not going to make things up. And so I think we'll see DOJ holding its ground, but a really dangerous effort to infiltrate and weaponize.
Yeah. Wasn't Rudy Giuliani the top prosecutor in New York at one point?
Well, it pains me to say so because I worked at that same office years later.
To say, we have theories, but we have no evidence. It's just like, wait, prosecutors, especially top one.
He was the U.S. attorney right here for the Southern District of New York. Hard to believe.
Yeah, hard to believe. Nia, so the chairman, Benny Thompson, tonight says that there's going to be a conversation, there will be conversations about pardons in tomorrow's hearings. What do you think we might learn here?
I think this is about Scott Perry, and Scott Perry was sort of the tip of the spear in trying to have someone in the Justice Department installed as an acting attorney general and essentially advance Donald Trump's plot to overthrow the election. He has been, according to Liz Cheney, he actually asked for a pardon. She also said that there were other Republicans who asked for pardons as well. They haven't said yet who that is. Maybe they'll reveal that tomorrow. Scott Perry, who again, Liz Cheney said asked for a pardon, has denied that allegation. So we'll see what kind of evidence the committee has tomorrow.
So if they're asking for pardons, Ellie, if you didn't do anything wrong, why do you ask for a pardon?
Yeah, I think that's the obvious
question. A blanket pardon for all of the bad stuff that I did?
Right.
Like what?
And this is a really interesting showdown because we have the committee saying Perry asked for a pardon, him saying absolutely not. Now, this is in contrast to John Eastman, where we saw an email from Eastman saying, I'd like to be added to the pardon list. I mean, that he can't argue with, right? It became like a meme, I think. But here we have just, yes, he did, no, I didn't. So I want to see tomorrow, does the committee have evidence to prove that? And if so, what is they clearly have testimony to that effect. Do they have something beyond that?
Yeah. You know, Alyssa, the calls of violence against January 6th committee members, it's outrageous. But we're seeing them on the same platforms that fuel the lies that led to the insurrection. Committee members are beefing up their security. And I mean, it's unbelievable that they're having to do this, all of this being pushed by the former president of the United States. Do you think this threat will remain?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the right call that the Capitol Police have decided to provide security details for some of the members who've received threats. But to put a finer point on it, I mean, the hearing earlier this week, you heard rank and file civil servants, an election worker, a staffer for the Secretary of State in Georgia who had their lives upended, who were threatened directly by a former president of the United States. The members of the committee have faced it. I've faced it. Anyone who speaks out against this man and has any sort of a platform gets the mob unleashed on them. I mean, so Donald Trump pressured, stress-tested democracy in a way that I don't think anyone was ready for, and then throw in the social media environment we live in and just the changing media environment, we're at a very dangerous point in our country. Lies can be amplified in a way they've never been able to be before, and people who can be completely misrepresented, they can be threatened by dangerous people, and it's sad. I think this is something that really, really needs to be taken seriously, and I'm shocked that Republicans can't see directly what a threat this is to some of their own colleagues.
You're leading me into my next question, which I asked Scott Jennings last night. When I said, where are the parade of people going out and, going to town halls all around the country, but where are the people who are coming on CNN, the Republicans, or any, other networks besides, the ones who hold up the big lie? Where are they, saying this person is dangerous for our democracy. This isn't the kind of person we want leading the party, let alone leading the country, let alone our party, right? So where is that, and why? Why not?
This is the kind of pathetic part of it all, is that in a Georgia election worker, Shay Moss had more courage and more integrity than most elected Republican senators or House members, because they are afraid of what speaking out against Donald Trump might do to their careers. Many have said they're afraid of what it might do to their families and their personal lives, because they know the kind of man he is. They know the mob that he can unleash on them. So they're just going along and hoping for somebody else to speak up. That is the truth of it. People have said it to me directly and privately. I'm hoping that this moves the needle, but the political courage in Washington is very bleak right now.
Listen, Nia, it's kind of what we, during the 2016 election, what we would hear in the green room. And then we'd get on television and sit next to a panel to somebody and say, wait a minute, what happened to that person and what you said in the green room? This is the exact opposite of what you said about this man who is running for president of the United States. When he became president.
That's right. I mean, you would talk to Congress people privately, and they would say one thing about Donald Trump, and then publicly they would say something else. And this essentially this was the permission structure for Donald Trump to do whatever he wanted to do, and it meant that he got away with it. It meant that when it came time for Mitch McConnell to say, hey, maybe we should impeach Donald Trump after January 6th, something that Mitch McConnell did lay the blame at Donald Trump's feet for, he essentially whiffed and said, he's out of office already. Why would we impeach him at this point? So that was a real missed opportunity, but it also really, I think, speaks to the larger problem that Republicans had with this president. Former president, his idea of power was it's better to be feared than respected. And that's what you have at this point. His followers certainly respect him and admire him. A lot of the folks in elected office simply fear him and don't necessarily respect him.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all. Thank you, Nia. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you very much. Ellie, right? Yeah. I appreciate that.
We've met.
Yeah. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow to the hearings. We're going to have special coverage here on CNN. And also tune in tomorrow night. Filmmaker Alex Holder will be on this program. So they want Trump's White House counsel to talk publicly. Could Pat Cipollone be the John Dean of 2022? I'm going to ask John Dean. He's next.
Our committee is certain that Donald Trump does not want Mr. Cipollone to testify here.
We share this place, we all belong.
Coronavirus. To get daily news updates in your inbox, sign up for the CNN newsletter. Coronavirus. Fact versus fiction.
If I have the opportunity to leave the world in a little bit better place than when I got here, then I'm kind of participating in that. So I think it's important. We're being the largest jewelry company out there in volume terms. We have a big role to play and show the way in the industry, and that's what we're doing. So it's not just the right thing to do, that's an important motivator personally, but it's also future-proofing our business, because I do think that at one point consumers will take note whether you're a socially responsible company. We can already see, of course, NGOs are pushing this agenda, but I can also see that the financial community is now starting to raise the bar and require companies that they invest in to have a proper attempt to do some work in the sustainability area.
our mission here at CNN and journalists. The news comes first. That's when your heart beats a little bit faster.
More breaking news that we are following right now.
You really work as hard as you can, getting the facts.
We're learning more about our land plot.
It is critically important.
To our viewers in the United States and around the world, welcome to the Situation Room. We have breaking news.
The January 6th committee gearing up for tomorrow's hearing on the then president's attempts to use the Justice Department to give cover to his voter fraud lies. We're going to hear from Jeffrey Rosen, Richard Donoghue, and Stephen Engel, all top DOJ officials while Trump was president. But there's a key witness who hasn't agreed to testify, and that's former White House counsel Pat Cipollone. Joining me now, someone who used to have that very job, and that's John Dean. He is the former Nixon White House counsel. John, thanks so much. Appreciate you joining. Thank you. I have to tell you before we get started, I learned so much more about Watergate with the CNN documentary that you did. Everyone should watch. The parallels to what's going on now, it's unbelievable.
They did a nice job.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank you. So thank you for responding to that. Listen, the committee has been laying out all these pressure campaigns on the former VP Pence, on local officials, and we're about to hear what was going on in the DOJ. How important will tomorrow's testimony be in piecing all of this together, you think?
I think it'll be very important. First of all, these are seasoned lawyers. They know what evidence is. They resisted pressure from the President of the United States. He was not acting properly. And so I think they'll be powerful witnesses. I have little doubt they will.
Yeah, and you understand all too well the position that Pat Cipollone is in tonight. I mean, he cooperated with the committee informally behind closed doors, and he thinks that that's enough. Why do you feel it's critical that he testifies publicly?
Well, I assure you my president didn't want me testifying either, and did everything he could to try to undercut me before I did. I think Cipollone is important because of his place of observation. He told Trump there were things he could do and couldn't do, but Trump isn't his client. It's the post-Watergate White House counsel represents the office of the president. There is a difference. The office is ongoing. The person who holds the office is very temporary, sometimes 4 years, sometimes 8 years. What Cipollone needs to do is protect the presidency. He took an oath of office at least 3 times to my knowledge, twice for bar examinations or bar admissions, and once to become White House counsel. He's not honoring that if he shields this with silence, this behavior of Trump's. So that's why I think he has a moral obligation to come forward, explain what he did, and will it lose him some clients as a Republican lawyer? Probably, but it'll give him a clear conscience.
Well said. So specific questions. You said he needs to come forward and tell the committee what he did, but specific questions that he needs to answer.
Well, he needs to answer exactly what he was told that Trump was doing and why they were doing it and why he thought that just stopping or his telling Trump not to do it and then he observed it going on. Don, this gets dangerously close to his own involvement in a conspiracy. Once he became aware of what they were doing, we don't know what all he counseled against. But a lawyer, one of the things happened post-Watergate, because of my situation, they wrote rules where a lawyer can use some leverage and tell his client not only to do it, but he will publicly leave and make a noisy withdrawal if the client doesn't stop it. And clearly they saw the fraud that was going on the public, and they just zipped it up. They haven't said anything, maybe quietly to the committee, but we'll find out from some of his staff is obviously going to come forward. And I think Pat's law license could be in jeopardy if he doesn't do the right thing here.
The former Assistant Watergate prosecutor's name is Nick Ackerman, says that Cipollone should be subpoenaed. What do you think?
Well, I think that would force the issue. If he then proceeds to fight it in court just to delay it, which is a standard Trump tactic, it will tell us a lot. If he does honor the subpoena, which he should, then we'll get some more information we need.
So I want to ask you about these new subpoenas issued by the DOJ relating to the fake elector scheme pushed by Trump supporters. One of them is for the Georgia Republican Party Chairman David Schaefer, played a central role in organizing fake electors in that state. What does that tell you about how the DOJ is looking at this right now?
Well, they're looking very broadly now. Now that they're focusing on the fake elector issue, that involves multiple states. The subpoenas have gone to Arizona, Michigan. They're going all over the country, and they're not going to let this fake elector ploy out of their sight. It is probably a serious federal election law crime, plus it's fraud on the United States.
That's what I was going to say. Isn't that fraud?
Yeah, it's fraud on the United States, as well as probably some election laws were violated, depending on the state.
Well, that seems huge, John.
It is could be very big, and could involve a lot of people. This whole thing is so much more massive than Watergate. It's hard to fathom.
You just took one of my questions. I was going to say that Carl Bernstein has said that this is actually what Trump is accused of doing is worse than Nixon. But a lot of people have been waiting for, this John Dean moment, right? In these January 6 hearings, that John Dean moment happened during Watergate. They want a moment that will fundamentally influence how Americans understand what really happened. Have we heard that yet, or do you think we're going to hear it?
I don't know if somebody will come forward. It may happen in bits and pieces. Some of these lawyers on the council staff may come forward and do the right thing. They know a lot more than most other people. Lawyers sometimes get it on a privileged basis. Sometimes they just catch as catch can. A lot of my information was of that nature, but it was able to take and put things in a different perspective and make them understandable.
Yeah. John Dean, thank you. And again, I have to say, I encourage everyone to watch the Watergate documentary that CNN did with John Dean. The only difference between Watergate, one of the biggest difference, I should say, between Watergate and now is that Republicans had backbones then. And they stood up to Nixon and said, it's time for you to go. Republicans will not do that with the former president. It's a different time.
Afraid not.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
That's sad.
Yeah, thank you. The Uvalde School District Chief of Police placed on administrative leave tonight. The community making moves to hold him to account. We're going to tell you about that next.
What do you see when you look at the surface? Just that, the surface. But dive deeper and new possibilities emerge. Essential intelligence from S&P Global takes you here, providing the data, risk assessment, and workflow solutions you need to plumb the wonders beneath. A better, more prosperous future awaits. It's yours for the seeking. S&P Global. Seek and prosper.
The ever-changing weather around the world. Ever-diverse terrain and roads across the world. With Kumho Tire that has conquered all. There is no road you cannot go. Go with Kumho. Kumho Tire.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
On Mission Ahead, a new spin on launching spacecraft into orbit.
As a species, I think we just always look up and we say, well, that's the next frontier.
Then, could this new zero-emission boat be the Tesla of the sea? Plus, preparing for the future, are cities that float the answer?
On water, buildings don't have to be static.
Meet the entrepreneurs and inventors who are taking mobility to the next level.
Mission Ahead, Saturday on CNN, in association with Fujifilm.
We're here at the home of one of the FSB team. Was it your team that poisoned Navalny?
What do you want the world to know?
People are so exhausted. Just gonna help her carry this bag.
Scores of Taliban fighters, and just behind us, the U.S. Embassy. I'm the one who has to look them in the eye. Can I have your word? These people are depending on you. Now they're pressing in. They want desperately to tell their stories.
I'm Larry Medowo in Kigali, Rwanda, and this is CNN.
New tonight, Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo placed on administrative leave effective immediately. That is in the wake of the school shooting in Uvalde that left 19 children and 2 of their teachers dead, and more questions about the police response. Arredondo has remained mostly silent since the day of the shooting, and that's where my next guest, Kim Hammond, comes in. I have spoken with her before. She lives 2 doors down from Robb Elementary, and at a city council meeting last night, the council was about to vote on whether to grant Arredondo a leave of absence when Kim Hammond stood up to speak. Listen to what she said.
Your agenda number 6 is a decision on whether or not to give him a leave of absence. Why the hell would you? Let him miss 3 meetings. He's my councilman. Let him miss 3. Don't waste any more time on him. But you can do something right now, tonight, and not table whether you're going to decide to give him that leave of absence. I implore you, do not give him that leave of absence. I don't know if this, because this is a special meeting, if this counts towards his absence, but if it does, that's 2. You only need 1 more. He's gone. Do the right thing. Thank you.
All right, well, the council voted unanimously to deny a leave of absence. Kim Hammond is here with me now. Kim, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining.
Hi, Don.
Hey, listen, before I get to that city council meeting last night, I need to get your reaction to the news that Arredondo was placed on leave from his role as a police chief of the Uvalde School District, effective immediately. What's your reaction to that?
Oh, it's about time. That's my reaction.
That simple.
I'm glad. It's a step forward in the right direction.
Yeah. Let's talk about that council meeting. Tell me how you figured out how to block his requested leave of absence from the council.
I would like to say it was dumb luck, but I had been thinking of it for several days. One of the parents had enlightened me to the fact that the council was going to make a decision on whether to grant him leave. And in my brain, I'm like, why would they want to give him leave unless they're hiding something? So thought on it for a few days. Did not plan on speaking last night. And shortly before we left to go over to the Civic Center to the meeting, I thought there's got to be a way. So I opened up their city charter and went down, and I thought, he's missed a couple. I thought, one for sure. If he misses tonight, there's got to be something, and I found it in the charter. So,
do you think, Arredondo, do you think he's going to show up to the city council meetings now to answer any questions?
I doubt it. I really can't speak for him. He has every right to show up to one. I don't know if he doesn't have it. Well, if he doesn't have enough courage to put himself between children and a shooter, I don't know if he would have the courage to put himself in front of us.
You've had some very strong words for him, Arredondo, in the past. What do you want to hear from him?
I resign.
Wow. That's it?
That's it.
Why?
There is no apology. There is no, for me, I can't speak for the families. They don't want to see him. They made that very clear last night at that city council meeting. I'm getting a lot of attention because of what I said, but there were a lot of family members that stood up last night and had just as much to say that was just as impactful, that swayed that council. I'm the only one that quoted their bylaws to them. So it was a very impactful meeting. The council was put on the spot.
Kim, we found out yesterday that the classroom door that we were initially told was locked, that it wasn't locked, it was unlocked the entire time. I know how close-knit the Uvalde community is. I saw that firsthand when I was there. You talked about how the people there don't want to hear from Arredondo, but how is everyone handling this particular news about the door?
No, it's just outrage. I think there was a sense of, hey, a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, did he even try the door? There was no evidence that anybody went over there and actually tried the door. And if he was trying keys on that style door, did he test the door? No.
Are people talking about that?
He didn't. Yeah, in our friend circle, in the folks that are going downtown and we're protesting for his removal, we've been talking a lot about it. So amongst that circle of, I'd say about 10 people, yeah, we've had a lot of discussion about he didn't even try the door. So, when we found out that he had shields at 12:03, stuff just doesn't add up. And then we find out 19 minutes on scene, they had one of those shields. They had a smaller shield, but they had long guns in there. So they all just have to go.
Yeah. Well, Kim, we wish you well, and we thank you for appearing. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Don.
It's the president versus gas companies. Will anything he's done to lower gas prices crippling Americans' families' wallet? Is there anything he can do? We're going to dig into it next.
I'm Bill Weir in Greenland, and this is CNN.
As the sun sets in Seoul and Shanghai, deals are signed in Dubai, and Europe is already in play. New York prepares to make its first move. I'm Julia Chatterley, host of CNN's First Move. I'll speak to newsmakers, risk takers, and the ultimate game changers. Bold moves, big deals, winning trades. It's all right here. Make CNN your first move.
First Move with Julia Chatterley today.
My school has been involved in human trafficking awareness and taking action against human trafficking for about 13 years. My name is Veronica McDaniel, and I am teacher supervisor of Atlanta International School Against Human Trafficking. I feel it's important to teach young people to know the signs of human trafficking. We can do a lot of prevention work just by opening their eyes to the problem. Hashtag My Freedom Day means a lot to me. It actually fuels my work with young people at Atlanta International School and globally. 6 years running, we've been able to really reach a lot of students. It's just become bigger than I think any of us really thought it would, and now we want it to keep getting even bigger. My hope for the future is that students are becoming so much more confident in this topic that they're completely leading the charge, where students are listening to other students, and we're realizing that's the most effective way for kids to really hear about the issue. I'm an idealist. I know that we can't completely eradicate human trafficking in the next 5 years, but my hope is that over time, with this new wave of strong young leaders, that we're certainly diminishing.
I'm Jenny Wassenaar, Chief Sustainability Officer at 3VM Packaging. Sustainability is an imperative for any business. If you look at the footprint of your organization, you have to make sure that by 2050 latest, you're at zero emissions. This is important for the Earth, it's important for future generations, but it's also important for your employees. So I'm expecting that businesses that do not focus on sustainability, that they will not be around for a very long time. Of course, this looks a bit like a threat, but it's actually not. It's a great opportunity for companies to embrace sustainability, take sustainability in your DNA, and make a future career and success for your business out of sustainability.
Sunday on CNN. In a year full of challenges, let's salute those using their platforms for good.
It's just so needed, and we have a lot more to do.
Join us as we shine a light on some familiar faces.
I have gotten a front row seat to what heroism is.
Turning words into action.
It makes us human.
If we still care, there is hope. CNN Heroes Salutes, hosted by Erin Burnett. Sunday.
President Biden calling for a 3-month suspension of the federal gas tax, which is about 18 cents a gallon on regular, right? But it's going to be an uphill battle to get lawmakers, states, and oil companies on board with this. CNN economics commentator Catherine Rampell joins me now. She knows everything. You're going to tell us, you're going to fix it and tell us everything, right? Set us straight. Catherine, hello. I spoke with Paul Krugman last night, last night, and he called the gas tax holiday a stunt. President Obama has said that it's a gimmick. In the past, he said that. Do people care about that if they get some relief at the pump?
That's a big if. That's the question here. Given that the gas tax represents a relatively small share of the total price that people pay at the pump, and suspending it temporarily may not mean that all of those savings actually go to consumers, that not all 18 cents will go to consumers. We don't know what exactly the breakdown will be, but probably companies, producers will pocket at least some, perhaps most of those savings. It's not clear that regular consumers will feel much relief. And I think that's why people are referring to this as a stunt. It sounds like they're doing something, but it's not obvious that it'll make any meaningful difference in price.
So
but it will, of course, have an impact on budgets, right? I mean, that's the trade-off here.
Yeah. So do you think it's a stunt?
Yeah, basically.
It's a gimmick.
I think that it's a gimmick. I think they need to show that they're doing something, because voters are understandably quite frustrated, and many of them are suffering from the fact that gas, among other items that consumers buy, has gotten much more expensive recently. So they need to say that they're doing something, and they have very limited tools available, to be clear. The main reason why gas prices have gone up so much recently has to do with the fact that there is this unprovoked war in Ukraine that has led to a lot of Russian oil being taken offline. So there's this big supply shock. Demand is really strong, and it's very difficult to fill in the hole that was basically created by all of that Russian oil becoming unavailable.
Well, listen, we mentioned the former President Obama. Jason Furman, a senior economic official in the Obama administration, is warning a gas tax holiday would add to inflation. Do you agree that lowering prices and potentially driving up demand could make inflation worse?
I think it's possible, because what's effectively happening is that demand for gas is already really strong, as we've been discussing, and supply has not been able to accommodate all of that demand. If, in fact, you do succeed at making gas a little bit cheaper, you might actually increase demand for gas, and over time, whatever savings you might have seen initially will disappear. So yeah, it could end up driving up prices in the longer term, perversely. That's why most economists would argue that the way to deal with the inflationary pressures we have right now are not by increasing demand for the things that are already in short supply. It's by trying to find ways to ramp up supply. And obviously, the Biden administration is trying to do that at some point, but it's really difficult to do for oil, for energy, for a lot of different reasons, including that the long-term incentives for energy companies are to not make very expensive upfront investments today, because fossil fuels are probably going to get phased out over time as they get displaced by much cheaper and renewables, and renewables are getting much cheaper. So if you are an energy company right now and you're thinking about making an investment in like a big new refinery, that's going to not pay off for a couple of decades. A couple of decades from now, there may not be that much demand for the petroleum products that come from that refinery. So you have to think about the incentives that these companies face. I mean, Biden has been browbeating these energy companies for not ramping up refinery capacity. But again, it's expensive, and it's not clear that it's in their long-term interest to do that. So calling them unpatriotic or whatever, I'm not sure is going to work either. But again, Biden, I think, feels like he has to do something.
Yeah. Catherine, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Allegations of harassment, intimidation, sexual misconduct. The NFL commissioner forced to answer questions on the toxic work culture of one of the league's teams. That's next.
We'll be landing shortly in South Africa.
Sunny day in Cape Town and today.
We invite you with open arms to our wonderful country.
What in the world is going on in Texas right now?
A ruby red state gets redder.
Money is what's pushing Texas to the far right.
Why?
Is this about being conservative or is it about control?
CNN investigates deep in the pockets of Texas. Saturday on CNN.
This is the tiger track, so I'm doing the measurement to make sure this is real tiger track. I would say this is a healthy one adult tiger. For example, Hue Kai Keng right now, we are the biggest home of Indo-Chinese tiger population.
César Dutré, a manufacturer of gold dentures in England, traveled to India, then part of the British Empire, in 1930 to sell his wares to officers in the British Army. Many of the officers he met complained about their wristwatches getting smashed during polo matches. Back in Europe, Dutré hooked up with two watchmakers, Lecoutre and Edmond Jaeger, and an engineer named Alfred Chavot, and the four of them devised the Reverso. Now, the unique feature of the Reverso is that the case slides and flips over, so the glass part of the watch, the crystal, is not exposed. What is exposed is a solid metal back, which can withstand any bumps and smashes during a polo match or any other sport.
Afghan women are afraid that this is the beginning of your efforts to erase them from the workspace.
Malumnis, it's not clear. Even if we appear with the burqa, maybe they will say that women's voices are forbidden.
Did you ever imagine that you would be prevented from going to school?
Girls' education is fundamental to the dignity of Afghan life.
Do you believe that young girls will be allowed to go to school here in Afghanistan?
Tonight, the head of the House Oversight Committee vowing to subpoena testimony from Dan Snyder, the owner of the NFL's Washington Commanders. And today, the committee questioned NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell on the league's response to the allegations against Snyder. More now from CNN's Joe Johns.
Hybrid hearing.
The House Oversight hearing on the reported toxic work culture of the NFL's Washington Commanders, featuring several big hits.
You keep saying you did everything possible. You're studying, you have to do more. Yes or no, are you willing to do more?
Prior to the hearing, the committee releasing a 29-page memo detailing findings from its own month-long investigation into the alleged misconduct of NFL team owner Daniel Snyder and the work environment he fostered.
You're aware that in 2009, Dan Snyder was accused of sexually assaulting an employee on a private airplane, correct?
Am I aware of that? Yes, I'm aware of that allegation.
And sir, Mr. Snyder settled those claims for $1.6 million, but he did not inform you in 2009 that he'd been accused of sexual assault, correct?
I don't recall him informing of that, no.
The committee concluding Snyder directed his own shadow investigation to target and harass those who made accusations against Snyder or his organization.
It shows the links Mr. Snyder went to harass, intimidate, and silence his accusers, including journalists, attorneys, and former employees, anyone involved.
After Snyder, who denies the claims, refused to appear for the hearing, Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney announcing the committee will issue a subpoena to compel a deposition from Snyder next week.
If the NFL is unwilling or unable to hold Mr. Snyder accountable, then I am prepared to do so.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell testifying remotely about what the NFL knew and what it has done to hold Snyder accountable.
We impose unprecedented discipline on the club, monetary penalties of well over $10 million, and requirements that the club implement a series of recommendations